Hi, how are you?
And you guys are from D.C., is that right?
Yes, we are from D.C.
So this family, you're from D.C. Why do you think it was important for you to bring your children out here today?
Well, my husband actually suggested it, and it was a matter of whether we would support the process on the couch or whether we would come out here.
It's our civic duty.
Yes.
It's our civic duty.
Yeah, well, I mean, when you think about it, we're just asking for justice and humanity. Those are the only two things that we're really asking for. It shouldn't be a controversial topic, you know? And I feel like it's our civic duty, you know, to stand up against things like this, you know?
We're not coming to a state house with rifles. All we have is our words and our hopes and our dreams for a better tomorrow. And that better tomorrow can only happen if everybody in this city comes out and says, we demand human rights.
And how old are your kids?
So
I'm 20.
20.
I'm 16.
What kind of conversations have you guys been having this week?
It's been a difficult week.
Yeah.
Just the helplessness that the kids have been discussing. And what I wanted to have them come out here for is just to give them some hope that maybe things could change, maybe things could get better, because these young people here are really the leaders. And so if they come here and they synergize, hopefully we can make things better for them when they get older. So,
as a 20-year-old man, what has this week been like for you to watch everything unfold?
It's been challenging. It's been infuriating, frankly. It's one of those things where it's like, you know, we've been fighting for these issues for, hundreds of years. I sent a video to my family yesterday of these slaves that were interviewed in the 40s, talking about, you know, their time, and it's like they were sort of speaking to the same sentiments then, about having their own humanity and having, you know, not necessarily having to be given the right to express themselves, you know. So it's infuriating that, you know, over the course of hundreds of years, we're still seeing a lot of the same issues. And it really, it's been a call to arms, you know. It's really been impactful.
And as, you know, a 20-year-old, your mother said, too, that it's up to the young people to really be out here and lead the charge forward. How is that for you to know that it's partially up to you as well?
It's a heavy weight to bear, but it's something that is necessary, you know. Wars aren't won when people sort of sit idle, you know. You have to get on the ground. You have to stand for something. And I think that's something a lot of, everyone out here is showing that we stand for human rights. We stand for equality. We stand for justice. And, you know, the fact that...
It's not about violence at all.
Yeah.
It's not about violence at all, not one bit. All this is about is recognizing a life was lost mercilessly and for no reason except for a man getting on the ground at the direction of another man, and that other man who was in a superior position, a position of authority, put his foot on his neck and choked the life out of him. That's wrong, and any reasonable person knows that. And if they don't, God bless you, or God forgive you. It's not for me to forgive you, it's for God. And I think far too often we go by a lot of these man-made constructs of law and order, but we don't live by God's law. And that's not to take a life. This is needless or pointless.
I've been talking with people out here today asking, was it George Floyd or a culmination of things that brought them out here today? For you guys, how was that?
Trayvon Martin.
Trayvon, yeah. I wouldn't let him walk out of the door with a hoodie. I wouldn't let him run across the street. It's a culmination of injustices. And this just kind of boiled over. But this is necessary. This is necessary, and I'm glad people are out. And I'm actually, as I said, very hopeful to see these young people out here, and of all different races and genders. It's just an amazing thing. So I'm hoping that this mobilizes them and galvanizes them to do something more, to do something better than what my generation did. So
feel hopeful. Have you felt this much hope before?
Well, I mean, it ebbs and flows. Whenever there's an injustice, we always come out and we always protest, and we have that synergy, and then it kind of dies away. So I'm hoping that this time people will stay together, stay with a purpose, understand the things that they have to do in order to make everything better for all of us. This isn't just about black people. Okay, if you give justice to us, it's justice for everybody. And I'm hoping that message resonates with all of these young people.
I hope we don't fall into a lull of complacency, I mean, we need to hold people accountable. I really hope that we keep the same energy for everything, for every instance of injustice going forward. I hope we keep the same energy.
And your daughter, what do you hope she takes away today, or what would you like?
I take away that a lot of people see it doesn't really matter what race you are. Everyone sees that what's going on is wrong, and I would kind of just like for this to be, it's being broadcasted right now, but for more people to see that this injustice and things against people of color, it has been wrong and it's still wrong and it's still going on. So I would just like for people to still, or just recognize that more going into the future. So it's kind of.
I look at it like this. This is our country, all of our country, and we're not going anywhere. And I'm going to have grandchildren one day. My grandchildren, they're going to be able to pick and choose who they choose to be involved with. They're going to be able to, gravitate, go through society, because they're capable, qualified, and they are just good people. They're not going to take a life pointlessly. So I'm pretty much done. I feel I'm thankful that we're able to be here today, that we're engaging in some type of responsibility, and that's it.
Well, thank you guys so much for talking. Lorenzo, so we heard from a family, and we also heard from a DC native who has, wanted to be out here because it's at a boiling point, and that family as well said it's not just this incident, it's been a culmination of incidents for many, many, many years.
Yeah, interesting hearing the perspective there from that one family, Colby, and just the generational differences, but yet still the same view. Colby, great chat with a lot of the people there, kind of giving us the different perspectives as well, how some of these protesters are approaching this event today, and the importance of just simply having their presence. But this crowd has grown. I believe we just switched to our different camera there outside of Lafayette Square. And if the photographer can hear me, I don't know if the barrier. They went through that little barrier that the Secret Service had set up around the perimeter surrounding Lafayette Square. I know they've been trying to keep this crowd at bay and under control for a bit, but since we've been on the air at roughly 2 o'clock, we started at Howard University. There was a group protesting there today called the Peaceful March for the Injustice and Equality of African Americans in America. They were chanting, they were talking, they were just standing around on Howard's campus at about 2 o'clock today. And about 30 minutes after that, they started their march through Washington, and they were set to end here at the White House. That was one separate group. But before that, we saw a number of other groups descending on Lafayette Square as well. Some people said they were either part of these groups or they heard by word of mouth or on social media that this would be taking place at the White House today. Day 3 of protests here in Washington following the murder of George Floyd, 46-year-old man in Minneapolis. And you've really heard a number of different stories from the people out here today of all different backgrounds, different colors, and it goes back to the same point of just equality. And we're watching this here because late last night, before you went to bed, if you stayed up late, you saw quite a different scene playing out here. You saw the cops, or the police officers rather, Secret Service, as well as U.S. Park Police, D.C. Police, engaging a bit more, the National Guard, with some of the people out there. The temperature was definitely turned up a lot last night, and we're starting to see it turn up a bit right now. It is still peaceful right now. I do want to point that out. But yesterday at this time, you did see a drastic change in the way these protests were being carried out, from people trampling Secret Service vehicles to eggs and bricks being thrown at officers. We do know yesterday, 17 people were arrested. And DC Police Chief Peter Newsham said of that number, at least half of them are from out of the district. Some of them had no fixed address, but we do know that a lot of them did come from Virginia to protest in Washington, which is typically the case. And considering this is a federal land, federal ground that we're looking at here, a national issue, some people are drawn to this particular location. And it's also important to point out that during this pandemic, that, yeah, these signs are more important than ever because people do have their faces covered. It's impossible to socially distance in a situation like this, but they are trying to find a way to get their message across effectively. So, yeah, while these signs are a staple during protests, they mean a lot more than usual these days as people try to let the world know why they're standing out there. I want to see if we can listen into some of what these folks are saying right now.
Don't shoot! 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 Don't shoot!
Those of you in the control room, do we still have that other vantage point from behind the White House fence? So we do know that yesterday you did have, there we go, now you have the officers horseback there. You have them in their riot gear. We've seen this same shot on our cameras for the last 2.5 hours. Initially, it was clear you had some of those Secret Service agents traversing Lafayette Square, just going back and forth. But even their stance has changed drastically as this crowd has grown over the last couple of minutes. You see them with their riot gear on, prepared for whatever may come their way, because there we go. You can see they're a little closer to these protesters now. Earlier today, it was tough to even make them out at this point. They just had the barrier set up and a few Secret Service agents and members of the National Guard kind of at a distance. But now they are inching closer in anticipation of what may come. So yeah, you see U.S. Park Police there. I'm trying to see who else is on guard here. And this is the barrier I mentioned a little earlier that they had set up. It looks like some of the protesters breached that part of the fence that Secret Service members had set up. They've been trying to keep these protesters away.
Okay.
On Friday, they were a lot closer to the White House, but they clashed with Secret Service agents. So it seems like this time around, they're trying to keep it farther away because it's really tough, even for these law enforcement officers, to manage a crowd of this size and to try and keep the peace. So our Colby Satterfield, we've been chatting with you throughout the evening. I know you've been talking with some of the people out there today. What have they been telling you, and how has the mood changed since we spoke even a couple of minutes ago?
Lorenzo, it has changed. You know, it was super, and it of course feels very peaceful. The mood is peaceful down here, but this barrier, within the last, I'm going to assume, few minutes while we were doing those interviews and you were hearing from people that wanted to come down here with their families and show support for this cause, you know, the barriers have been broken down and people have filled Lafayette Square. I'm not able to see, because the crowd is so large, how many people have moved forward, but we know about an hour ago, a few people went over that barrier and Park Police came towards them. Some protesters yelled at them, but then they came back over the barrier and the Park Police went back where they were. And we could see a lot of, officers in the wings, not doing, just observing. Can't see what it looks like up there now, but at first I was thinking, oh wow, a lot of people are gone. No, they have just expanded more into Lafayette Square.
Yeah, this is exactly how they were yesterday. They were just standing guard there, and after a while, we do know that, some people would start tantalizing those officers, throwing objects at them, and that's when you saw the mood change. So they've tried to remain steady, and throughout all of this as well, it's important to point out. We do know that, like DC police officers, they've been traveling with some of these protesters throughout the city, making sure they're safe and they can express their views safely as well. So they're playing an interesting role here. They're doing their job, but yet they are also the focus of these protesters' eyes.
Yeah, and Lorenzo, I haven't seen any officers besides the park police when a few people jumped over the first barricade about an hour ago. So just looking around now, I see officers blocking the streets off, which they seem to be doing a really good job of that. But in tune of officers walking around among the protests, I haven't seen any of that. But as soon as you get about 20 yards away, that's where you see large groups of officers just kind of sitting and chatting amongst themselves.
Yeah, and these protesters have definitely inched a lot closer to the White House than what we witnessed earlier in the afternoon, when most of them were out in the street in that intersection because they couldn't get any closer than this. So that may also explain why these U.S. Park Police officers have also had more of a presence right now than what was obvious before. Now, I want to point out that this has been peaceful so far. This is what D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser has been calling for. She's been asking people to remain calm. She says she understands and empathizes with the outrage and what's been happening in the city, but she's asking these folks not to destroy any parts of the city, not to injure any officers. We do know Friday, Secret Service said at least 6 of those protesters were arrested, and last night, Metropolitan Police Department, DC Police, said they arrested 17 people for different violations throughout the city. We saw fires and dumpsters. We saw that structure. You're looking at the Hay Adams Hotel there on the left. There was a structure on fire next to that hotel. The officers had firecrackers thrown at them, eggs thrown at them, their cars damaged and destroyed in some cases with graffiti. And that's not the picture that city leaders want, and that's not the picture that a lot of these protesters want either, because looking at some of our raw video, some of what we've tried to go through and put on television, some of it's not suitable for TV, but in one video that struck me is in the business district, which is a little north of Lafayette Square. You had windows broken out, people going into some of the liquor stores, stealing, looting, and you had a group of protesters going after one guy, writing on a wall, graffiti, saying no, yelling at him, having to a tense argument because that's not what they wanted. You also had groups like Black Lives Matter trying to be independent of some of the violence that we've been seeing. They were trying to distance themselves away from that. They had a caravan going throughout DC yesterday, dozens of cars traveling through the city, honking, getting their message across that way because they didn't even want to come close to any of the officers in this case or any of the other people who may have had a different agenda. So yeah, those protests have been peaceful. Those wrapped up a little earlier, but as the crowd grows here, you do have those people who come in with a different frame of mind, different agenda, and it just spoils it and shifts the narrative for everybody. Let's listen to who Colby's talking to here.
Well, it wasn't an hour protest. It was a group of people that walked down together. It wasn't Howard sanctioned protest. It was just a group of students, HBCU students to be clear. A group of HBCU students decided to come together and walk down to the White House. We're here because for far too long we've watched too many of those that look like us get killed. While I was in law school, I went to law school in 2013 after graduating from Howard University. I went to Howard School of Law. While in law school, I had Trayvon Martin, I had Freddie Gray, I had Tamir Rice, I had Sandra Bland, and still, after graduating 4 years later, after my 4 years out of law school, we still have the same problem. And until this country faces its truth of racism, we will still continue to have this problem. So I'm not a part of the looters, but I do understand when people riot. When you kill black bodies and they lay on the ground and we have to watch it, what does this country expect to happen? So while I'm out here peacefully, I do understand that after a while, as people get tired, when you look on TV, I've been looking at TV, when you look at the police officers beating peaceful protesters, if this was any other country in America, if it was any other country outside of America, we would be going to those countries saying there's human rights violations. But in our own country, as we protest peacefully, we're being beat by police officers, and I don't see any coverage. We have mayors in New York, governors in New York making excuses after you see a whole police car run through people. If that would have been any one of us, we would have been arrested. But we have to review it, and Governor Cuomo said in 30 days they're going to make a decision on what to do. Time is out for that. So that's why I'm here. That's why we came to protest. I'm tired of speaking. We know there's so much more that can be done, but let's not talk about the looting. Let's not talk about the riots without dealing with the problem of systematic racism in the police department.
Is that something you feel we should be more focusing on? I've talked with a lot of people today because there are a lot of broken buildings or, broken glass and buildings that were, broken into last night. What do you hope whenever this weekend is over? What is the message that you hope everyone takes away?
So I think let me be clear. Though I am here peacefully, I do understand the outrage and anger in this country that's going around, not only in this country, but worldwide. I'm not going to sit here and tell people how to grieve during this moment. That's not my job. But I will say, the message that I want America to take away is they have to deal with their racism. Until we deal with the racism in this country, and when we look at the Fourth Amendment in this country, if you look at Terry versus Ohio, the case for stop and frisk, the two people in Terry versus Ohio were two black men looking in a window, and one black officer that was known to be racist followed them, and now that has become the law of the land, where we can stop and frisk African Americans for no reason at all. So my message to America is deal with racism. Stop skirting around the issue. Stop making excuses for your racism. Stop getting in front of people and trying to make it like, oh, it's the looters. This country looted Africa. This country loots other countries. This country took land away from Native Americans here in this country. So when we talk about looting, we can't keep on saying that, hey, this is not our country. We're not a violent place. We are violent. This is a violent place. We bomb countries. We do everything else. But when it comes to your own people, for 400 years, black people and brown people, to be exact, have had to deal with racism. The time has come. So we can keep calling it a riot, but it's not a riot. It's a rebellion. Just like the revolution was, the American Revolution was a rebellion. Today is a rebellion against the racist system in this country that continues to kill black and brown bodies on national TV, on cameras, with no remorse at all. So my message to America, deal with your racism. Until you deal with the racism and we attack it head on, there will continually to be this will be a problem forever, especially now that we have a George Wallace character in the White House, Donald Trump, inciting these riots.
Let me ask you this. I've talked to people about this earlier today. Does this moment in time feel different than before? So for me, at Howard, I was a part of teaching people, training individuals in Ferguson and Baltimore and DC through a program called Howard University Alternative Spring Break. I was teaching people know your rights training, but even it feels a lot different because now it makes me want to change the tactics that I tell. We've been telling people in the legal field and others, if you comply, you won't die. So now there is a difference. This video, ever since I saw that video Monday morning, or was it Tuesday morning when I woke up, I haven't been able to take my eyes off the news.
this is my first time coming out, because as I kept watching the violence going on at the hands of police officers, yes, we do have some people creating some chaos. But when I see peaceful protests, when you look in LA and you saw those police officers beating people with clubs just standing there, but yet we wonder and we want to say that there's a few bad apples in the police department. No, it's a culture of bad apples. And until we deal with those cultures, this time right now, I'm tired of coming out here. I've been down here. I marched down here after Trayvon Martin. I marched out after Freddie Gray. I'm tired of it. And we as a people are tired of marching, and now it's time for this country to do what it should have done a long time ago and deal with its racism.
Well, thank you so much for talking with us. Lorenzo, I'm going to go ahead and send things back to you.
Yeah, what a very important message there from that man there, Colby, and a lot to digest.
Protest what's going on in America, which is clearly injustice, then you're contributing to it and you're just letting it happen. And my dad is Afro-Latino, and I'm white passing, so I was given a privilege that other people were not. So I chose to use my privilege today and use it for something good.
What do you hope comes out of these protests? Because we've seen some of them in the past, like this, and people are saying they really hope that this changes something now. What are you hoping happens action-wise after this?
I hope Trump realizes that we're serious about this and how other departments realize that these cops won't be in the departments anymore, especially the ones that abuse their power and use riot control tactics on peaceful protests. It's an abuse of power and it's not okay.